Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now. Hold on to your seats, football fans, because what we're about to expose is going to absolutely blow your mind and make you question everything you thought you knew about coaching in the National Football League. We're talking about a conspiracy theory that's gone from internet whispers to a full-blown movement demanding answers, accountability, and possibly even an investigation into one of the most bizarre coaching decisions in recent NFL history. This isn't just about a lost game. This is about potential sabotage, career destruction, and a young quarterback who might have just been robbed of his moment of glory by the very people who are supposed to have his back. What went down in Cleveland has the entire NFL world up in arms, social media absolutely exploding, and fans calling for heads to roll at the highest levels of the Browns organization. We're witnessing something unprecedented here, something that goes beyond normal coaching criticism and enters the territory of genuine malfeasance. The question everyone is asking right now is simple but devastating. Did Kevin Stefanski deliberately sabotage Shedeur Sanders? And if he did, why would he do it? What could possibly motivate a head coach to undermine his own quarterback, especially one who was putting on a performance for the ages? Let's set the scene so you understand just how insane this entire situation really is. Shedeur Sanders, the fifth-round draft pick who many people believe should have gone number 1 overall, was having the game of his life in Cleveland. We're not talking about a decent performance or a solid outing. We're talking about a historic, record-breaking, legendary performance that had everyone in the football world taking notice and reevaluating everything they thought they knew about this young quarterback. Sanders threw for 364 yards. Let that number sink in for a second. 364 yards. That's not just impressive for a rookie, that's impressive for anyone at any level. He threw 3 touchdown passes that were absolute dimes, perfect spirals placed exactly where only his receivers could catch them. He added another touchdown on the ground, showing off his mobility and his ability to make plays with his legs when the pocket breaks down. He finished with a passer rating of 97.7, rushed for 29 yards, which nearly made him the leading rusher on his own team, and only took 2 sacks the entire game while throwing just 1 interception. This was supposed to be a make-or-break game for Sanders. Before kickoff, analysts were saying that if he struggled, if he got outplayed by Cam Ward, who was the first overall pick in the draft, we might see Deshaun Watson back under center or a return to Dillon Gabriel, effectively ending Sanders' opportunity as the starting quarterback. The pressure was immense, the stakes were impossibly high, and Sanders responded like an absolute champion. He did everything they said he couldn't do before the draft. He proved every doubter wrong, silenced every critic, and showed the entire NFL that he belongs not just in the league but as a legitimate starting quarterback who can carry a franchise. Sanders was picking apart defenses, making throws that veteran quarterbacks struggle with, showing pocket presence and awareness that takes most rookies years to develop. He was dropping dimes in the back of the end zone, threading needles between defenders and making it look easy. When the money was on the line, when the game was hanging in the balance, Shedeur Sanders was that guy. He held up his watch not because he's showing off expensive jewelry. He was born rich. He doesn't need to flex material possessions, but because it represents winning time. When the clock is ticking down and you need someone to make a play, Sanders is the guy you want with the football in his hands. The Browns were down by 2 scores with only 4 minutes remaining in the game, a situation that would make most rookies panic, that would cause veteran quarterbacks to force throws and make mistakes born of desperation. Not Shedeur Sanders. He was calm, composed, completely unrattled by the pressure or the situation. He led not 1 but 2 touchdown drives in those final 4 minutes, bringing his team all the way back and putting them in position to tie the game and send it to overtime. This is the kind of clutch performance that defines careers, that creates legends, that turns good quarterbacks into great ones and great ones into Hall of Famers. Sanders thoroughly outplayed Cam Ward, the quarterback who was drafted ahead of him, the guy who got the big contract and all the first overall pick hype. It wasn't even close when you look at the statistics and the impact on the game. Sanders showed everyone watching why so many people thought he should have been the #1 pick all along, why passing on him was a mistake that teams would regret for years to come. He vindicated everyone who believed in him and proved that the draft analysts and front office executives who let him slide to the 5th round made one of the biggest blunders in modern draft history. And then it happened. The moment that has everyone absolutely losing their minds and questioning everything about Kevin Stefanski's competence as a head coach. The Browns needed to convert a 2-point conversion to tie the game and send it to overtime. This should have been simple. You put the ball in the hands of your quarterback who just threw for over 360 yards and led you on 2 consecutive touchdown drives in crunch time. You let him make the play. You trust the guy who's been making plays all game long, and you live with whatever happens because at least you gave yourself the best possible chance to succeed. But that's not what happened. Instead of putting the ball in Shedeur Sanders' hands, instead of letting the hot hand stay hot and the guy with all the momentum make the play, Kevin Stefanski decided to get cute. He called some kind of wild dog formation, some gadget play with trickery and misdirection that took the ball completely out of Sanders' hands. The play was either poorly designed or poorly communicated or both, because not everyone was on the same page. The result was an absolute disaster. The running back ended up throwing the ball 40 yards across the field, 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, when they only needed to gain 2 yards to tie the game. Let me repeat that because it sounds too insane to be true. They needed 2 yards and somehow ended up with their running back throwing the ball 40 yards in the wrong direction. This isn't just bad play calling. This is catastrophically incompetent decision-making that defies all logic and reason. What universe are we living in where this makes sense? What possible justification could there be for taking the ball out of your quarterback's hands in that situation, especially when that quarterback has been carving up the defense all day long? The decision to even go for 2 instead of kicking the extra point and keeping it a 2-score game has people scratching their heads and demanding explanations. Some people try to defend it by saying that when you're down 14 points, you go for 2 on the first touchdown because a 2-point conversion is 50-50. So if you don't get it the first time, you're more likely to get it the second time. But here's the problem with that logic. Even if you're more likely to get it the second time after missing the first attempt, you're still just tied at 14 points. You know what else gets you tied? Just kicking the extra point. The math doesn't work, the logic doesn't hold up, and the entire sequence of decisions looks increasingly suspicious the more you examine it. Even the broadcast announcers were questioning the decision in real time. Professional commentators who usually try to stay diplomatic and give coaches the benefit of the doubt were openly wondering on national television why you wouldn't want Shedeur Sanders out there to make that play, especially after what he did the last time they were down in the red zone when he scrambled for a touchdown. Why would you suddenly abandon what's been working all game and resort to gadgetry and trick plays? It makes no sense from a football perspective. And that's why people are starting to wonder if there's something else going on here. This isn't an isolated incident either. This is a pattern of behavior from Kevin Stefanski when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. For the last 3 weeks, every time Sanders gets the ball at the goal line, they try to take it out of his hands. They run these wild formations, these trick plays, these gadget concepts that take the ball away from their quarterback and usually result in stuffed runs or failed attempts. It's happened repeatedly, and each time people have made excuses or written it off as bad luck or poor execution. But now that it's cost them a game on national television with everyone watching, people aren't willing to give Stefanski the benefit of the doubt anymore. Let's talk about all the other ways the Browns organization has seemingly worked against Shedeur Sanders since he arrived. He wasn't given first-team reps in practice. Think about that. Your starting quarterback isn't practicing with the starting offense. How is he supposed to develop timing and chemistry with his receivers? How is he supposed to learn the offense and understand the protection schemes if he's not working with the actual players he'll be taking the field with on game day? This is coaching malpractice at its finest. They had him practicing with third and fourth string offensive linemen. The offensive line is the most important position group for a quarterback's success and development. You need to feel comfortable with the guys protecting you. You need to understand their tendencies and capabilities, and you need to build trust that they'll hold their blocks and keep you safe. By forcing Sanders to practice with backups and third stringers, the coaching staff ensured that he would have no feel for what the actual game would be like when he took the field with the starting unit. The training wheels were taken off Sanders for exactly 2 of the 4 quarters in this game. For half the game, they let him actually play quarterback, actually run the offense, actually throw the ball downfield and make plays. And what happened? He was spectacular. He showed everyone exactly what he's capable of when given the freedom and trust to execute. But for the other 2 quarters, they kept him restricted, limited, handcuffed by conservative play calling and an unwillingness to let him open up the playbook. It's almost as if they're afraid of what might happen if they let him play freely for an entire game. Even people who weren't necessarily Shedeur Sanders supporters or fans before this game had to acknowledge what he accomplished. People who had doubts about his ability to succeed at the NFL level, who questioned whether he was just riding his father's coattails or benefiting from playing in a system at Colorado that inflated his statistics. Even those skeptics had to give him credit for what they witnessed. When your critics are forced to admit you played well, you know you did something special. Sanders became the first rookie quarterback to win his first start in Cleveland Browns history since 1995 when the franchise came back to the league. That's 30 years of rookie quarterbacks, and not a single one had accomplished what Sanders did until now. He also became the first rookie quarterback to throw for over 300 yards in a Browns uniform. These aren't just impressive statistics. These are historic achievements that will be remembered and referenced for as long as the franchise exists. These are the kind of accomplishments that should be celebrated, that should earn a young quarterback more trust and more opportunities, not less. But instead of celebrating their rookie quarterback's historic performance, instead of building on the momentum and the confidence he displayed, the coaching staff chose to undermine him at the most crucial moment of the game. They literally took the game out of his hands when it mattered most. After he drove them down the field twice in 4 minutes to even give them a chance to tie the game, after he showed the composure and clutch gene that you can't teach and can't coach, they decided he wasn't the right guy to get those final 2 yards. This wasn't just a bad decision. This was a fireable offense. This was the kind of coaching blunder that should result in immediate termination, the kind of inexcusable mistake that destroys all credibility and makes it impossible for players to trust their coach going forward. How is Shedeur Sanders supposed to have confidence in his coaching staff after this? How is he supposed to believe they have his best interests at heart when they keep making decisions that seem designed specifically to prevent him from succeeding? The discourse around Kevin Stefanski has shifted dramatically. People who were defending him, who were saying to keep him because the defense is elite and Jim Schwartz is doing great work, who were praising offensive coordinator Tommy Rees as an up-and-coming whiz kid, those same people are now calling for the entire coaching staff to be fired. The excuses have run out. The benefit of the doubt has been exhausted, and the patience of fans and analysts has reached its breaking point. When even your strongest supporters are turning against you, you know you've messed up badly. Some people are saying maybe Stefanski isn't deliberately sabotaging Sanders. Maybe he's just incompetent. But here's the thing. Does it matter? Whether it's intentional sabotage or just catastrophic incompetence, the result is the same. Shedeur Sanders is being prevented from reaching his full potential. The Browns are losing games they should win, and the entire organization looks dysfunctional and incompetent. At some point, the reasons why don't matter as much as the results, and the results have been absolutely unacceptable. Sanders went 23 of 42 for 365 yards with 4 total touchdowns. He thoroughly outplayed Cam Ward, the first overall pick who was supposed to be the better quarterback, the safer choice, the more pro-ready prospect. Sanders proved all of that wrong in the span of 60 minutes. He dropped absolute dimes all over the field, showed arm strength and accuracy that had scouts raving, displayed mobility and improvisation skills that extended plays and created opportunities, and demonstrated the kind of leadership and composure that makes everyone around him better. And his reward for all of that? Having the ball taken out of his hands on the most important play of the game. Having his head coach decide that some gimmick wildcat nonsense was a better option than letting his playmaking quarterback make a play. It's insulting, it's infuriating, and it's exactly the kind of decision that makes people question whether there's something more sinister going on behind the scenes. The comparisons to what we saw at Colorado are impossible to ignore. At Colorado, Deion Sanders trusted his son completely. When the game was on the line, when they needed a play to win, the ball was in Shedeur's hands every single time. And you know what happened? He delivered. Over and over again, he made the plays when it mattered most. That's why he holds up his watch. Not to show off the bling, not to flex his wealth, but to signify that it's winning time. That's his signature move, his calling card, his way of saying that when the pressure is highest and the stakes are greatest, he's the guy who's going to come through. But in Cleveland, despite showing all those same qualities, despite proving he's that same clutch performer who delivers in pressure situations, the coaching staff doesn't seem to trust him the same way. They keep trying to take the ball out of his hands, keep calling plays that minimize his impact rather than maximize it, keep treating him like he's a liability instead of an asset. It doesn't make sense unless you start considering the possibility that they don't want him to succeed, that they're actively working to prevent him from establishing himself as the unquestioned starter. Think about the incentive structure here. The Browns have Deshaun Watson on the roster with a massive guaranteed contract. They have Dillon Gabriel as another option who represents a different direction the franchise could go. If Shedeur Sanders establishes himself as clearly the best quarterback on the roster, if he puts up performances like this week after week and shows he's the franchise quarterback they've been searching for, it makes all those other investments look foolish. It exposes the front office for making bad decisions. It makes the coaching staff look bad for initially not starting him, and it creates organizational embarrassment. But if Sanders can be made to look inconsistent, if his performances can be sabotaged through bad play calling and lack of support, if losses can be pinned on him even when he plays well, then the organization can justify going in a different direction. They can say, we gave him a chance and it didn't work out, even though they never really gave him a fair chance to begin with. They can protect their previous investments and decisions by ensuring that their current quarterback doesn't succeed too much or too obviously. Is this what's actually happening? We can't know for sure without being inside those meeting rooms and hearing those conversations. But the pattern of decisions is suspicious enough that fans and analysts are right to ask questions and demand answers. When something looks like sabotage, sounds like sabotage, and produces results consistent with sabotage, at some point, you have to at least consider the possibility that it might actually be sabotage. The owner of the Cleveland Browns needs to be asking some serious questions right now. What is the coaching staff's plan for developing Shedeur Sanders? Why are they making decisions that seem to undermine him rather than support him? What's the long-term vision for the quarterback position, and how do these game management decisions align with that vision? These are basic questions that any competent owner should be demanding answers to after watching what happened. If the owner isn't making tough decisions by Monday morning, if heads aren't rolling and accountability isn't being enforced, then we have to start questioning the entire organization from top to bottom. Good ownership doesn't tolerate this kind of incompetence, doesn't allow coaches to sabotage their own players, doesn't permit organizational dysfunction to cost them games. The fact that these patterns have been allowed to continue for weeks suggests either the owner isn't paying attention or doesn't care. And either option is completely unacceptable for a franchise that wants to compete for championships. The defense did get some criticism too, and rightfully so. After Sanders threw his one interception, it immediately led to 7 points for the opposition because the defense couldn't get a stop. They've been called front runners, meaning they play well when things are going well, but fold when adversity hits. That's not championship defense. That's not the elite unit that people have been praising. If your quarterback has to be absolutely perfect because your defense can't be counted on to make stops when needed, that's a recipe for failure in the NFL. But let's be clear. The defense isn't the main story here. The offensive play calling is the main story. The decision to take the ball out of Shedeur Sanders' hands is the main story. The pattern of undermining and restricting your best offensive player is the main story. Everything else is just noise and distraction from the central issue that needs to be addressed. Even looking at the All-22 film, the coach's view where you can see every player on the field and evaluate decision-making more comprehensively, it's hard to imagine there were many opportunities Sanders missed. When you throw for over 300 yards, account for 4 touchdowns, and only turn the ball over once while taking just 2 sacks, you can't have left much on the field. The TV broadcast doesn't show you everything, but the results speak for themselves. This was an outstanding performance by any measure, and trying to find fault with it requires either extreme bias or willful blindness to what actually happened. Sanders showed in this game that he can handle the mental side of the position at an elite level, being down 2 scores with 4 minutes left and remaining completely calm, processing information quickly, making good decisions under extreme pressure, executing the game plan while also being willing to improvise when plays break down. These are advanced quarterback skills that many veterans never fully develop. The fact that Sanders displayed all of them in just one game is remarkable and should have everyone in the organization excited about what he can become with proper coaching and support. Instead, we're talking about sabotage and incompetence and organizational dysfunction. Instead of celebrating a historic performance, we're dissecting terrible coaching decisions and questioning motives. Instead of building momentum and confidence going forward, we're dealing with controversy and doubt about whether the coaching staff even wants their quarterback to succeed. It's backwards, it's frustrating, and it's exactly the kind of situation that can derail a young player's development and destroy what should be a promising career. The calls for investigation might sound extreme, but they're coming from a place of genuine concern for fairness and proper player development. When you see repeated decisions that seem designed to prevent a player from succeeding, when you see a pattern of behavior that appears to deliberately undermine someone's performance, people are right to ask questions. The NFL should be a meritocracy where the best players play and get opportunities to prove themselves. What's happening with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland looks like the opposite of that. It looks like a talented player being held back for reasons that have nothing to do with football. This situation has implications far beyond just one game or one player. If coaches can sabotage players with impunity, if organizations can mismanage talent without consequences, if political and financial considerations can override what's best for winning football games, then the integrity of the entire league is called into question. Fans invest emotionally and financially in these teams with the expectation that everyone involved is genuinely trying to win. When that basic assumption is violated, when it appears that other agendas are taking priority over winning, the whole enterprise becomes tainted. Shedeur Sanders proved in this game that he belongs among the elite young quarterbacks in the NFL. He proved that passing on him in the draft was a massive mistake. He proved that when given the opportunity and the trust to execute, he can deliver performances that win football games and electrify crowds. Now the question is whether the Cleveland Browns organization will recognize what they have and build around it, or whether they'll continue with the same patterns of questionable decision-making that have defined this franchise for decades.